Hello and welcome back to the Garage Series Under the Hood, the series where we catch up with the engineering leaders behind Office and the products. I'm joined today by Asaf Kashi, one of our foremost engineering leaders in terms of information protection, right?
It's great to be here.
So you have been working on quite a few things. You're going by Dr. Kashi, I think, in the org as you live in your day-to-day life.
Sometimes doctor, sometimes nurse.
What does your team focus on directly within the productivity workloads?
So my team owns a part of our compliance story, and specifically encryption, DLP, policies, some of the management and mail flow as well.
Right, and we heard a lot in terms of DLP and some of these technologies. We want to recap all of those and also go into a bit more depth in terms of the backstory around all of that here. So what would you suggest is the innovation, the genesis in this space in terms of making this part of kind of the native exchange service?
So why don't we go to the board and I'll show you.
Okay.
So we kind of have three principles, and we start pretty much with built-in, not bolt-on. And what that means, if you go back to how DLP and some of the compliance stories went in the early ages. There we go. Let's call this our exchange database. And you had some data there. And in the old days, basically, in order to do any kind of compliance, you basically filtered the data out into yet another database. And then you built some kind of compliance story here, whether this was, let's say, e-discovery or archiving or something else. And this went against this database. Now, there was a problem here because anytime the data changed in your exchange server, you'd have to filter this back out. Kind of inconvenient, not very granular. You'd have to know exactly what you're going to need in the future.
So how do we build this in then? What do we do?
Perfect, good question. So we got rid of all of this part here. And we said, look, all this data, this should all be built in. So let's put that filter right in here. Let's create the set right in the store, and we'll just build the compliance story here. But let's not just focus on the e-discovery, and you can kind of read my handwriting here. Let's just add all of the other pieces as well. Maybe it's DLP, maybe there's archiving, or again, other compliance stories. And once we did that, just a natural extension, let's add some other workloads here. For instance, why don't we just add SharePoint Online? And then we can operate with that one compliance story against all of that. And the data, again, it stays built in. The solution is built in.
One of the cool things is then you have a common tool set. Users have kind of common controls in terms of seeing some of these things across all the different workloads, not only Exchange, but also SharePoint.
That's
we also
right.
talked about DLP a couple weeks back at SPC, our conference in Las Vegas, that we're also planning on putting DLP in SharePoint, right?
That's right. We showed DLP in SharePoint, specifically in e-discovery, and that was kind of the starting of taking DLP outside of the messaging space.
And I think what's important as part of this as well, in terms of putting the filtering and the control set directly against the active databases that are Exchange, is that we want to make sure from a user perspective we keep them productive, and also that they have the controls to do things in a safe manner, because ultimately it boils down to the user in terms of how they make decisions about what they send out through mail, right?
You're reading my mind. Let's go to the next principle here. User productivity. So we did not want to block the user productivity. We wanted to make sure that the users can continue working on all of their stuff. Here you can see our user is working, sending an email in OA, and they're it looks like they're sending, is that your credit card maybe?
It looks like my credit card.
So your credit card is being sent out. Now we don't want sensitive information to go outside. So in this case, we're giving the user a policy tip, and you can see that right here. And it's basically telling them that it's sensitive information.
And one of the great things is I've got the option to learn more if I'm an end user. I can click on that, I can see, well, I'm trying to send a credit card. It's kind of one of those duh statements, right? But maybe not everybody's aware of the fact they might be in a purchasing department. They might need to send out credit card information, so you might set up the rule for certain people that they can override that policy because for whatever reason they might want to send credit card information in this kind of manner out. But it might be other number types, might be other things that we're blocking, you know, whether it's ID numbers, et cetera, that maybe some people will want to be able to send out and other people shouldn't have the privilege of sending that out.
Exactly.
So you can enforce based on those groups. So beyond user productivity, because we are putting a lot of this into the hands of the user and making it visible to them, I think compliance officers are also wanting to have kind of a single pane of glass to look through all this stuff,
Let's go and look at that. So once we thought about user empowerment and education, the compliance officer is yet another kind of user. So we really wanted to bring that IT persona into the fold and really empower them to get their job done better, faster, maybe from a single place. And this here is our Unified Compliance Center, which again we've announced over the last few weeks, where not only you can see on this screen, you can see the DLP policies in my organization from one location, as well as the fingerprints, policy tips, etc. But over here we've got a number of the actions, the activities that a compliance officer might do. So they can do data loss prevention, archive, audit, e-discovery, encryption, and as we continue to build more functionality, we'll just add that to this central place where they can go, and therefore they won't need to go to all of the various other admin consoles that they have today. So it saves them time.
Because even though we're all, especially in the online sense of the word, we've got everything kind of under one place. They don't need to go into the Exchange and the SharePoint portals to view the information. Maybe they don't want to see the entire service health dashboard that the global or other higher end administrators have to see. They're only caring about data and running the compliance around that story, their security, data management story in their organization. The rest of this is just noise to them. This will give them a filtered view of what they need to do to get their jobs done, right?
That's right. Now, I do have a soft spot for the users, so I really actually want to show you a little bit of the override, that functionality, and how that works, and we can check that out in a real demo.
Awesome. Let's take a look.
All right, so let's see if my machine is still here. Yep. Okay, so what I've got here is the Exchange Admin Center, and we're gonna kind of walk through the scenario of I'm the IT admin. I want to kind of look at the policy, and then we're going to see the user activity both on the sending side and on the receiving side. So we're going to start with that document fingerprint, which is one of our new features in DLP, and I'm going to create a new one. We'll call it our garage demo, because I'm very creative tonight.
It's a crazy shirt.
Thank you. Now, we're going to add the drug trial template, and we are going to save that. And while that's happening, I'm going to show you what the template looks like. So as you can see on my screen, or on the screens behind me, that this is the drug trial template, and right now it's actually empty. So if I look at this form, it's an empty form. And what document fingerprinting does, it basically takes this form and slices it, figures out what content, what format is in there, and then allows Exchange to compare that to other content going through the system.
And I think importantly also, this doesn't need to be just a Word document, it can also be a PDF file, right?
That's right. It can be any number of forms that we understand. We understand all of the Office formats, the PDF formats, some engineering formats, etc.
Okay.
So now that I've created a fingerprint, I need to put it into a policy. So actually, for the brevity's sake, we're going to look at an existing policy that I have here, and we're going to see how that fingerprint is connected. So what I have here is a DLP policy to basically take an action when I see this fingerprint.
Okay.
So if I look at my second rule here, when this message is sent outside my organization, so if it's not somebody inside my domain, I'm going to detect a clinical drug trial fingerprint. So I see something that maybe shouldn't necessarily go out, or maybe it shouldn't go out in the clear. In this case, I'm going to encrypt it with my new Office 365 Message Encryption. And we should talk about that one in a second as well.
Sure. That's all new as well, right?
And that's right. We've got lots of new stuff this time. So now that I have this policy, let's take a look at it from the user side. So over here, I have Sarah Davis, and you can see Sarah Davis is logged into her OA experience. This could be, again, also in her Outlook, so it works both from a rich client or the thin client in the cloud.
Okay.
And look at that, I can go to my drafts where I've diligently prepared a draft message here. And what you see here is I've got the clinical drug trial results attachment. So I'm actually going to send a drug participant, the drug study participant, his results. So in this case, this was Alex, and we're going to add Alex, Dara Alex here. And as soon as that's added, you can see that the system detected this. And this was the policy tip I showed you on the board, where if we expand this to kind of check out the details, you can see that specifically in this case, we detected this clinical drug trial fingerprint. So the key here is we're educating the user. We're telling them why did this stop them, what's happening, what form did we find, or what regulation they're hitting, and what action they can take. In this case, I think this must be your best and favorite action, which is override. And what this allows me to do is to say that, you know, I really do need to continue working here, and this person is a study participant, so I am going to override this policy and send this message out.
But she gets to justify what she's doing to send it out, right?
That's right. And again, we want to keep the user informed, so in this case, the policy tip changed and actually tells me that my decision may be reviewed later. Again, we always audit. Obviously, we're the compliance people.
Right.
So let's send this out, and that's all there is to it. That's sent out. Again, she's got that clean mailbox with no mails.
Now, in your rule, you would define that if something was detected that was on that fingerprint, it would get encrypted, right?
That's right. So let's check out what that looks like. So in this case, I'm logged in to Yahoo, which is where Alex actually lives. That's his personal account. And you can see that I'm signed in as Alex Darrow. And we can see that the mail from my Pacific time zone actually arrived, which is 2 hours ahead. You can see that Contosa Pharma is the logo that we see here. So I'm expecting this mail. I'm used to getting mail from Sarah. I'm used to getting encrypted mail. So all I have to do, following the instructions, I just have 2 clicks here, save and open. And what this shows me is that even if I saved this encrypted mail on my machine and opened it later, maybe I was busy or I got interrupted, it still tells me that this mail came from Sarah and this mail was sent to Alex and I need to open it using my Alex Darrow account.
And I think it's pretty cool that we see also that the Contosa Pharma branding's throughout in the upper corner, in the bottom. All these capabilities really customize that experience, right?
That's right. Each one of our tenants, each one of our customers can customize this portal to be theirs. In this case, it says Contosa Pharma Secure Email Portal. That's something that Contosa Pharma chose, and they can call it anything they want. They can put in the logos, the disclaimers, so it really makes this personalized for their customers and their experience. And in this case, you can see I've got this experience where I'm reading this message in a rich Office 365-like experience. Any kind of replies, forwards will allow me to continue to keep this content encrypted, but carry on the conversation with either Sarah or anyone else I wanted to add to it.
Very cool. We've talked a lot about encryption, but I know there's even more than what we've shown here. We've got a pretty all-encompassing story, I think, around encryption, whether you're in the rich client or a NOAA to share, right?
Yes. Why don't we go back to the board?
Let's go back. So even beyond all of what we just saw, which is awesome in terms of DLP, we have the ability to do quite a few things in terms of encryption. So first, S-MIME.
So everyone's favorite, oldie but goodie. So S-MIME is all about communicating with government agencies, with people who are focused on standard bodies and want those end-to-end, end-user to end-user encryption, meaning I don't want anyone in the middle to have any way to open that message. So in this case, you can see all I have to do, I can highlight or check the box that says encrypt, or check the box that says digital signature, and then I'm just signing the message. So I have 2 levels of encryption with S-MIME.
But I think even beyond S-MIME, because S-MIME requires that you've got certs on the sender and the recipient side in order for the encryption to work. If we want to extend that out even further, we have a couple of options there too, right?
That's right.
So first off, this is something that we've had for a while now in terms of IRM and the exchange story, and that's been active for a long time. But some of the cool things is from a kind of user experience perspective, here I'm talking about the Dell Venue 8 Pro giveaway that we're doing. I don't want to tell anyone, and I've got the ability in this case to set the permissions so that it doesn't leak outside of my organization, whether it's Contoso or Microsoft, really empowering that user to be able to add rights management to their mail.
That's right. So there's kind of 2 things. So in rights management, so you've got this from the perspective of the end user, where they can set the appropriate policy for what they're doing. So in your case, you could have said Contoso confidential or do not forward. That way you control and you don't let others know that we're getting all these cool Dell Venue 8 Pro tablets. Now, the other half of the new stuff around IRM and rights management is the fact that with Office 365, we've actually introduced RMS in the cloud. So Azure Rights Management Service allows our customers to choose whether they want to deploy their own RMS server on-prem, which we've had for a while, or point their either on-prem or cloud exchange services to a cloud-based RMS provider, such as ourselves.
And that's a huge update in terms of the SP1 timeframe to be able to redirect RMS or IRM outside of your on-premises server workload into Azure AD. That means you can basically, through a couple of mouse clicks, as opposed to sometimes building 10 to 20 different servers that you would need depending on the scale of your org, it's just a couple of mouse clicks away and having the scale that you want to have, basically integrating parts of Office 365 with your on-prem exchange.
Yeah, it's really simple. It's our IRM connectors, both for SharePoint and Exchange, and obviously we care a lot about Exchange in this conference.
But even beyond this, we talked about SMIME, we talked about rights management, and rights management is really a basis to the next thing that we've done, which is huge in terms of Office 365, right? Something that we just showed over in the chairs, Office 365 Message Encryption.
That's right. So this is our new favorite encryption model. So when you thought about SMIME, you thought about governments, you thought about standards. When you think about RMS and IRM, you think about within your company as well as your trusted partners. Now, what happens when you want that B2C scenario, or that when you're reaching the consumer or someone that you don't operate or you don't work with on a regular basis? That's where Office 365 Message Encryption comes in. And you can send an encrypted mail to anyone with an SMTP address without having to know what client they're running, what mobile device they're running. As long as they have a browser and they can post back to somewhere to the internet, then we're able to serve them. And what you get with this is you get encryption. You get end-to-end encryption from your company all the way to that end user, and you see it in a branded way. So as I showed you in the demo, you saw that brand here. We have the garage logo, the disclaimers, the instructions. Again, this is all catering to that consumer. So if you're a doctor's office or sending medical records on a one-on-one basis, or if you're a lawyer or a mortgage company servicing those, this is the perfect encryption solution for that.
And since we are under the hood, the way this is really working is that we're federating MSA, Microsoft accounts, directly with this IRM infrastructure. So basically anybody with a Microsoft account or what we call an org ID in the Office 365 world will be able to open that mail, read that encrypted message because they're authenticating against the service. And that really opens it up to anybody who wants to receive a mail in an encrypted way, in a safe way, beyond just people that maybe have an org ID or have connection to your own ADRMS infrastructure.
That's right, and that resonates really well with our consumers, because in general, many of our consumers already have a Microsoft account for one of our other services, whether it's OneDrive or Xbox or Live, etc. So they can just use that without having to create another set of accounts just to read the encrypted mail.
Excellent. So we've talked about a lot today in terms of all the great information protection, built-in, not bolt-on, having user productivity, also making features for the compliance officer, and all the things that we're doing around encryption, making SMIME supportable, bringing rights management right into the forefront, making it easy for users and IT admins to implement, and also Office 365 message encryption. Really cool stuff that you've built.
I'm really proud of my team. We've built and shipped a lot of features.
All right, so that's about all the time we have for today, and this is the last show of the evening. Thank you all for watching, and goodbye for now.
Thank you.